Hallo Leute, ich bin Katja und ihr seht Deutsch für euch. I'm back! And we can finally get back to grammar because I finally have time for that stuff again. Yay! So today we will start with the topic that hopefully will clear up some confusion about pronouns. And that is the possessive pronouns in German. You might remember that I talked about the personal pronouns relatively early on. That means ich, du, er, sie, es, etc. If you have no idea what I'm talking about right now, make sure to check those videos out first. If you do know what I'm talking about, it might still not be that bad of an idea to refresh your memory, because it will help with some of the upcoming forms, or pretty much all of the upcoming forms. You might also want to rewatch episode 10 again, which was about the cases, just to get an overview about what those do again. And yes, before any of you ask, I do plan on making episodes on the individual cases in the future. So, for now, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Personal pronouns are what we use to refer to mostly people, but also things with a third person, without using a noun or a name. Meaning they're general terms that mostly work through making clear what sort of a relation they have to the speaker. Possessive pronouns, so the things that we're going to talk about today, are different. They express, you guessed it, possession. They're also, of course, generalized terms, and they also use the speaker as a reference point, meaning the person from whose perspective we're seeing something. Unlike personal pronouns, they only replace an article, meaning that we can't have a possessive pronoun and an article referring to the same noun. That doesn't work in English either, by the way. You can't say, that is my mother. In English, the possessive pronouns are mine and my, yours and your, his and his, hers and hers, its and its, ours and our, again, yours and your, and theirs and their. Yeah, my weird finger counting just got a little out of hand. So, fairly easy, right? We have two groups here, mine and my, of which one is used attributively, my, meaning that is the kind that replaces the article. That means it is connected to a noun in the same clause, as in, that is my mother. The other kind, the ones like mine, replace a noun, or you might also want to say they imply it. So you could have a dialogue like this. Whose mother is that? Mine. So you can see there, you couldn't say mine mother, because mine replaces the noun. So that means these can't be used if it's not clear from the context or previous utterance, so something that's already been said, which noun they refer to, or rather are standing in for. These two versions exist in German too. But, as you may have guessed, as always, there is a bit more to it than that. Firstly, of course, we decline the possessive pronouns just like we do with adjectives and the personal pronouns, meaning that there are 8 forms for every possessive pronoun, 4 singular and 4 for plural. Additionally, we need every possessive pronoun in the singular to have one option for each one of the 3 genders. Why? Well, let's take a look. Let's compare these 2 sentences. Das ist mein Hund. Das ist seine Katze. Now, we can see from this that a German possessive pronoun is selected by 3 standards. Firstly, who is the person that owns something here? Meaning what grammatical person and number, and if it's the third person singular, what gender do we need for the person that is the owner of something? Secondly, what is the number and gender of the thing that is owned? So meaning we need to know, is it singular or plural, and if it is singular, we need to know if it's female, male, or neutral. And then lastly, we need to know what is the grammatical function of the thing that is owned, not the owner. This helps us find out what case to use. So when translating the sentence, I can see my brother, we have to ask ourselves the following questions. Firstly, from whose perspective are we seeing this, or more simply, who owns something in this sentence? The answer is the speaker herself, which means that we need the first person singular, ich, and the according possessive pronouns, mein, meine, mein. Second question, what number and gender does the possession have? In this case, we have der Bruder, which is a male noun, and it's just one, so we need the singular. So pulling all of that together, we need the singular male version of the possessive pronoun for the first person singular. And that is mein. And then lastly, to be able to put it into a sentence, the last question, What's the function of the possession, meaning what case does the possession have to be in? Here we're working with the verb sehen, which calls for an accusative object. So both Bruder and mein need to stand in the accusative. For Bruder, that's rather easy because it just stays the same. But for the male mein, the accusative form is meinen. So we would end up with the sentence, Ich kann meinen Bruder sehen. And the same thing happens with the alone standing possessive pronouns. They also get declined, but the difference is that, like I said before, the noun that they refer to cannot stand in the same sentence. Meaning, we could have this dialogue. Whose brother are you seeing? Mein. Wessen Bruder siehst du? Meinen. Or, to make it longer, Ich sehe meinen. In this case, the alone standing and the attributive form are the same, but this is not always the case. But again, for this, we also took the number and the gender of the thing that is possessed, der Bruder, plus the case it needs to stand in based on, in this case, the verb it is combined with. In this case, we need the accusative, and use that to find out what possessive pronoun to use. This is the process you need to work through when trying to find out what possessive pronoun to use. It is not this lengthy, of course, normally. If you're completely lost, you should know, the protocol, so you can go step by step. But normally, this should, and I think will, for most of you, come more intuitively once you know all the forms and practice them a bit. The essential thing for this, of course, is knowing what gender your noun is. And this is exactly why at this point I like to imagine a distressed groan from those of you who always like to kind of skip over the genders when studying. Yeah, they're pretty important. Sorry. Anyway, that's how it's done. So if you did the math earlier, you might already be panicking at the thought of how many possessive pronouns there are in total. Because if you crunch all the numbers, you get to a nice, condensed 96 forms. But think back to our episode on declining adjectives. Remember how quickly we reduced the then scary looking number of 48? Yeah, we're kind of doing something similar here. Unlike the personal pronouns, the possessive pronouns have actual endings for the cases. And those endings just happen to be the exact same endings as those for the undefined articles. They're also the same as for the defined articles for the most part, but there is 1 or 2 or 3 forms in the defined articles that are unique. So I want to say, undefined articles because there it's actually 100%. So if we take the whole table that we would end up with and try to reduce it, we would end up with 6 endings in total. Those endings are the so-called zero ending, N, R, M, S, E. Of course, not quite as neat as our 4 different endings for adjectives, but still pretty doable, I'd say. You don't need to learn these as a list, by the way. This is just to put things into perspective. Although, if you find that easier, of course, you can learn them like this. So the bigger part here is yet again learning when to use which ending and, of course, the stems of the possessive pronouns themselves. So for our next 8 grammar sessions, that is exactly what we will be doing. That is 2 sessions for every case, 1 singular, 1 plural. So meaning next time we will talk about the nominative for the entire singular. That is ich, du, sie, es. Now, as you know, normally I try to alternate between grammar and vocabulary with, a little exception in between, like pronunciation or trivia or whatever. But for this, I would actually like to do 8 weeks of grammar in a row, because you will have to repeat everything from last week and the weeks before, preferably before every session anyway. And I think that will come a lot easier if the pause in between is only 1 week, if you do it by my schedule, of course. So 8 weeks, pure grammar, and just, irregular verbs of the week. And, but I hope that will actually help you, get a good grip on this topic. But yeah, anyway, that's it for today. I'm glad to be back, and I will see you again next Tuesday for our first real possessive pronoun session. Until then, your random word of the week is der Geldbeutel. Literally means money bag. Many people also still call this portemonnaie, which is a kind of Germanized pronunciation version of portemonnaie, which is a French word, obviously, which pretty much used to be the normal word for this for a while French was very chic. So yeah, that's an alternative. Bis nächste Woche. Tschüss.